Today is World Refugee Day, a day set aside to highlight the plight of those displaced from their homes by war, politics and other harsh conditions. Most of the people forced to leave their home countries for other countries find themselves vulnerable, and there are misconceptions in host communities. We are now joined by Cayley Clifford, Deputy Chief Director at Africa Check, to take a look at some of the misconceptions about refugees and migrants in South Africa. Cayley, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Perhaps when we start to address the most popular one, being that people who are not necessarily from South Africa come into the country and they take the jobs meant for South Africans. What does data suggest?
So this is quite a popular claim that we see, this narrative that foreign nationals are taking jobs from South Africans, from locals. We fact-checked something recently, a viral tweet, which claimed that Eskom and Vodacom each employed 1,000 and 5,000 foreign nationals, while government employed over 10,000. And this went quite viral on social media, as is often the case with these kinds of claims. Here it was really quite easy to get in touch with these entities and with government to ask them what the numbers actually showed. And what we found was that Eskom employs actually less than 156 foreign nationals. For Vodacom, the figure is 71. And when it comes to government, which we know employs over 1,160,000 employees, only around 4,300 were foreign nationals. So from this, we could see that the numbers in the tweet were quite wildly inflated.
And on the perception that foreign nationals are actually responsible for crime, or the majority of crime in the country, what does the data suggest?
So as a fact checker, when we hear a claim like this, the first question, as you've pointed out, is, what does the data show? Where is the evidence to back this up? The South African Police Service does collect data on the nationality of people when they make arrests, but unfortunately they don't make this information available to the public. What we do have is data from the correctional services system. This is data on whether inmates in South African prisons are South African or not. And what it shows is from a period of 2017 to November 2021, inmates that were undocumented made up just over 2% of all of those convicted of crime in South Africa. So again, you could see why it may be a bit of an exaggeration to claim that foreign nationals contribute massively to crime levels in the country.
When it comes to the claim that foreign nationals are overburdening the healthcare system in South Africa, what does the data again show there?
So this is another persistent claim that taps into the broader narrative that foreign nationals are taking up state resources or taking resources away from South Africans. And we see this claim being made particularly in relation to hospitals in Limpopo for obvious reasons. Limpopo is South Africa's northernmost province. We are bordered by Botswana, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. And so we often see claims that pregnant people are traveling across the border in very high numbers, specifically with the intent to give birth. In this case, the claim was specifically about Messina Hospital, which is about 15 kilometers from the border of Zimbabwe. And we had last fact-checked this claim in 2018, a claim that 80% of women who give birth at Messina Hospital are foreign nationals or undocumented Zimbabweans. At the time, the hospital had said to us that roughly half of all the babies delivered on average per week were delivered to non-South Africans, so about 50%, not as high as 80%, but still a high number, and it makes sense considering the proximity of the hospital to the border.
Why is it important to check such? So
there are a number of dangers to claims like these that continue to do the rounds. Experts who research in this area that we've previously spoken to have expressed a concern that continued myths like this could contribute towards the increased marginalization and discrimination of foreign nationals. But more than that, and certainly as a fact-checking organization, we want policy to be based on evidence. We want evidence-based decision-making. And I think if we're going to really try to solve a problem, we need to understand it first, and this is where we come in by shedding light on the numbers, the context around foreign nationals, so that we can see evidence decision-making being made. This is to avoid resources being incorrectly allocated, for example, or attention being placed in areas where maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be.
Another misconception is that there are so many people who are leaving the continent and going outside, literally embarking on perilous journeys. While that is true, what does the data suggest? It is true, rather, that people are making perilous journeys, but it is said that the African continent actually hosts the most number of movements and refugees. Which country hosts the most number of refugees in Africa?
So our focus in this area has largely been the conversation around immigrants to South Africa. And we do have data on this, but I think sometimes it's important actually to understand some of the terms that are being used initially, because we often see terms like illegal foreigner or undocumented migrant being used interchangeably with terms like asylum seeker or refugee, and these are, completely different terms. So someone who immigrates to South Africa from another African country is an immigrant here. And if they do not have permission to be in the country, then they are an undocumented migrant. So terminology is important. In terms of numbers, we do have data on that. Stats SA collects data on migrants in their national surveys, national censuses, and they've put this number at 3.95 million in 2021. This is about 6.6% of the population.
Thank you very much to the Deputy Chief Director at Africa Check, Cayley Clifford.